Um, I was going to ask you guys, have
Mm.
you watched the Beckham documentary on Netflix?
Mhm. Yep.
What do
Mhm.
you think?
I
I
liked it.
liked it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Other than
I
the
did
fact that
too.
Much
Glenn
more than
Hoddle
I
looks
was
like a
expecting
monster.
to.
Is
Sorry?
Glenn Hoddle really a monster, or they just needed a victim?
Well, I think the way that Glenn Hoddle probably approached the whole thing wasn't in the best way possible, because he's just
He
trying to
did throw
throw
him under the
someone.
bus in those
He
interviews.
did.
Yeah, he really
So I mean,
does.
he's
Can't
Yeah.
deny that.
he absolutely does, and he did it back then as well in '98. And it's kind of like what Mourinho would do, or what Ten Hag
Yep.
has been doing. Coaches do it, right? But Glenn Hoddle
But
was the nicest guy I've ever met when I did TV with him. So I don't know what he's like, because I'm not.
one
I
thing
don't
that
know
I
him.
thought that they just glossed over and didn't even mention was 2002 World Cup when he scored the penalty against Argentina. That was coming full circle, the redemption. And yeah, they showed it in about a 2-second flash, but they didn't talk about it at all. And I thought that was such a huge moment in his career. I remember watching it live, and I was just like, this is just such an amazing story. You know,
Mm.
he's
Oh,
actually
like
I'm
as
with you
in
on that
his
side. And I
redemption.
thought they
he can
were
close the book on
surprisingly
that now.
skimmed on that.
Yeah, he can close the book on that now. Everyone loves him again, and it's against the same country. Like
Mm.
you can't write that script, and they just left it out. Anyway,
Which was weird. Like the Rebecca Lou stuff, I wasn't surprised got left out because obviously, like he's had some pretty strong control over it. But that was weird. You thought that would be a good thing. I don't know if it's a
yeah, I think
footage
it's coming
issue or
back to
what.
bite them now, isn't it? Because now there's stories coming out about it, and she's talking again. Maybe they should have just left it out 100% rather than glossed over that.
You can't. It was like the thing that made like it's like the huge, like the biggest story of the Beckhams was that, you know. But she also understands that he mentions in the beginning that he didn't really have a childhood. He never went to a nightclub. He never did anything because football was his life. And I feel like she almost gave him his childhood despite being married to him, you know. I feel like she loves him like a mother would love a kid. It doesn't seem to be like it's an unconditional love rather than a normal relationship in which you have boundaries and limits, I guess. She's a very good woman by the sounds of it, you know. And he
I
loves her
really
in his
enjoyed
own
hearing
way.
from her in that documentary. I thought it was really
Yeah.
interesting hearing from her. And I thought like some of that stuff that got talked about was exactly the stuff that I'm always trying to like explain to people doesn't get considered when we talk about transfers, is that players do actually have lives away from the football pitch. Like, and we can
Yeah.
all sort of say, oh yeah, but how can you turn down this or that? Actually, it might genuinely be that their family life matters to them more, and that's okay because they're still people. You know, his case is obviously extreme, but I think that sort of concept applies to footballers everywhere, and people never want to acknowledge it.
Like Kieran Trippier, when he moved to Newcastle, everyone started like screaming at him because they were like, "Oh, you left, you know, it's because the money of Newcastle." And his wife was like, "I genuinely wanted to go back home. Like I wanted to be in England." And so it was like any move that came, but it's like that gets over. Like his wife mattered at the time to Trippier,
Yeah.
and I just feel like sometimes people don't really take that into consideration.
And
yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
And like, you know, with Victoria and David, you can look at them and go, well, you know, to some extent, you've chosen this celebrity and wealth lifestyle. You've made your bed, lie in it. But when you see like when they're in Spain, the scenes with them like carrying the kids to the car and stuff, I thought like, I mean, actually, that's a 5-year-old. Like, you know what? Like, and as a parent, damn right, you'd want to be like, no, this isn't acceptable. Like, I want to go anywhere this doesn't happen because that's my child. Like, it's really like understandable.
Also, the level of hate, by the way, it was insane. Like I get really upset when someone writes something on Twitter, and I'm just like, can you imagine if I had like a whole country like writing headlines? And thank God there was no social media back then. That was like, was that back then? 98?
That was really interesting because, of course, like we were more like university age when that was happening, and like that didn't really register quite how extreme it was to me at the time. In a way that I think it's different. Yeah, you're right. Even younger, weren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, not just maybe like
I remember the
final year of GCSE. Yeah,
I remember the what do you call it, the mannequin or whatever at West Ham, you know, hanging him and that kind of stuff. I remember that. I remember just being sickened by it.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I don't remember much of that period, to be honest with you.
It's crazy. Like, and that pub owner who's just like, I don't think it's a big deal. And you're like, really? Like, that's a person. Like, yeah.
But they don't see celebrities and, you know, as real people, you know. They other them. They do that to celebrities. They do that to
Mm.
people they don't know or care about. And it's just the hypocrisy of. It's easy to say the whole country, but all those fans, because like I said, 4 years later he comes back and he's the hero, and they all would have been celebrating.
Of course.
Celebrating the player that they all were yelling about killing. It's ridiculous.
Also, I didn't know that about Madrid when he was dropped and how well he continued to train regardless. I thought that was really
forgot
impressive.
about that. Yeah,
The
I liked how
Capello stuff was
Capello
interesting, wasn't it?
kind of caved into the playing group, and then tried to keep him from going to LA.
Yeah.
Wanted to keep him at the
Capello.
club.
I have such mixed
Capello
feelings
is
with Capello because I think he's like not a particularly pleasant man, but sometimes I find him very compelling.
Capello is a product of hardcore, like an almost borderline abusive father. So he almost lacks a little bit of empathy, like and it's like he has that kind of. I mean, his kids always complained about him, like in all those interviews when they used to say he was really hard, but then he really loves his wife. So I feel like he straddles the line between humanity and him. Like he doesn't really like. He's just tries to be a good guy, but
Italian dad that I recognize in that. Like not necessarily my dad actually, but like I've seen other Italian dads, and my a really good friend here, Lorenzo, and her dad is quite like that, where it's like they can seem almost like emotionless in their cruelty sometimes. You're like, how can you not like be more human than this?
He's the epitome of that real hard ass. If you cross me once in your life, you're dead to me. That's what he did to him.
Yeah.
But Beckham just by being quiet and working hard on the sidelines, like he proved himself. And I love that story. That was a cool story.
But Beckham could deal with it because look at his life. His father was pretty hard on him, right? And then he had Alex Ferguson, who was also so he's had 3 men in his life who've just been complete hard asses, whereas he's gone completely the other way with his kids. He's like so soft and so like loving, and so even though every example that he's had of a man in his life has been so difficult,
That is so true, because you become pretty much how you were parented. Probably 90% of people, do so, and I know it with myself, right? I say the things my father said to me, or even that my mother said to me, and I say it, and I'm catching myself as I'm saying it to my kids or yelling it to my kids, in terms of disciplining and that kind of thing. And then you think afterwards, like, oh fuck, I swore I would never do this kind of stuff or say this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's very subconscious. It's amazing. And like you said, Beckham is completely the opposite of that. How has he managed to do that? How is he? Yeah,
although you say that,
a
but
very
right
rare
at the end
person.
When he was playing football with them, like you could see he was like wanting to be like his dad and be mean about like the football, be like, "You're not good enough."
Yeah,
he did it in a sort of loving way, but
yeah, exactly. I think it was banter, really, and it's good that he has that with his kids. I like that.
I think he leans a lot as well into what Victoria's like, and Victoria seems very soft with the kids, right? She's always so hands-on. She didn't have maids and nannies, and she was just pretty much like a woman raising her kids on her own. It was really impressive for a woman that had all that, like fame and stuff. And so, and maybe because she's soft, he sort of leaned on that. Whereas I also loved his mum. She came across as, do you remember when she talks about Glenn Hoddle's the only one that she seems to have like a thing against, obviously. And she was really upset by that whole thing, obviously. But she comes across as really well too. I loved her.
I really came out of it liking Victoria more, which is funny because some of the things in there don't paint her in a great light, right? Like there was definitely that sort of there was that one World Cup where, like, from the footage you saw, it really looked a lot like she was cheering for him to lose so that he could come and like hang out with her in New York. Like it really looked like she was not happy when they won. But I still came out of it liking her more because she just felt very real. She felt very human. Like, with all the sort of, with all the, the selfishness that can include, she just came across very like as a normal person in a strange way.
Also, I like that he owns up to being selfish. Like it almost makes it more endearing. Where he was like, and then she's like, like now you're passing on the baton. He's like, I don't want to pass on the baton. And then it was really funny. And he was like, and then I decided to be selfish and start into Miami. And I was like, get on your kid.
Even the Major League Soccer chapter was all quite interesting, I thought. Like seeing like quite how angry they were with him at Galaxy, and like seeing Landon Donovan's feeling about it.
I had no idea about that. I don't remember that
Yeah.
at all.
I don't remember that
any
either.
feud there. And they also didn't mention, I'm pretty sure they didn't mention that he actually did a second stint on loan at Milan a year later.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean.
So-
They didn't mention that. I thought
Yeah.
I was like the whole time I was watching this, I was like, was it one stint at Milan? Because I
Yeah.
remember it being.
It was a second at the beginning, I think, of 2000 and I think he did 2000. Was it
Yeah, I thought
9
he
and
did too.
10? And because Capello got him that gig, I suppose, and it was at the start. It was at the second
Yeah, it was
stint.
too.
He did his Achilles. I remember. I can picture it now. They didn't show it, but he was walking backwards, and his Achilles just blew out, and that was the end of his chance of going to the 2010 World Cup. But they loved him at Milan, and he was
against
really good at
Kiev.
Milan. I remember he was excellent there. I think he loved it there.
Yeah, do you remember?
Yeah,
Because it
well,
was
it was
during
interesting.
that
He
time.
clearly wanted to go and make it permanent, didn't he? Like watching that back, he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, okay, he wanted to.
But then when he
I
did
remember at the
pull
time
his
because
head in
Borriello
about
was
LA,
there.
he really did well at LA. I mean,
Yeah.
it's America, right? It was especially back then. But he
Oh my
really
So
god,
when
some
he's
of the
seen-
footage of that was incredible. Like some of
Yeah,
the
he
bad
was-
American football was really bad.
Oh shit!
When
And
they
the
was
look
like
on his
plumbers
face.
and pool, like, but what are we expecting from guys where he was saying cleaning the pool? Like, I can't believe that, when people were like, oh my God, like, as in a friend of mine was getting really, really upset about this whole, like, Saudi Arabia being better than the French league. Yeah. And I was like, all right, but do you think it's better than MLS? And then he's like, of course not. MLS is just full of athletes. It's full of, like, top-level athletes. They may not be good at football, but they're top-level athletes. And then this documentary came along and he's like, huh. I
MLS
didn't
is
realize
very
this.
different now to what it was then. It's very different now to what it was then. It takes time, but it is very
Yeah, I
different. Not
can
that it's
imagine.
suddenly great, but it's very different to what it was then.
But also, I thought it was really funny when he is like, I realized that for Landon Donovan, this was his Manchester United. I was like,
Yes.
Alex,
This startup franchise.
it was his Manchester. I was like, yeah, because oh, I don't know why I thought it was really funny, but it wasn't. Yeah, it was. I wish there was more of it because there was so much I would have liked him to have gone into.
Yeah.
But
It was a really well done documentary and like a genuinely incredible cast of guests. Like they got so many voices in from all through his career, like really interesting people to hear from.
Like Simeone.
I thought it was really well done.
It could have been
Like,
longer.
great,
Like
wasn't
it could have been double the length. Like
Yeah.
if you think of Michael Jordan's The Last Dance, which was brilliant.
Mm.
yeah, but Michael Jordan.
It could have been as long as that because I reckon the content was there.
Mm.
And the people were there. If
You
all of these
say
people
that,
had
you know,
agreed
about
to an
Michael
interview.
Jordan. But like Beckham was globally is probably about as big as Michael Jordan, wasn't he? And he didn't win as much, but
I think
still won the
Beckham is the
treble.
first. He changed. I think Beckham changed football in the sense that back then they were footballers, sportsmen, and then there were
Mhm.
celebrities. He was the
Yeah.
first to cross over the two, right?
yeah.
So he was the first Galactico of the world, not just around. He was a Galactico in every sense. But I think in terms of like the best ever player, probably not. Like in Michael Jordan
No.
will forever be remembered as the best ever player in
Yeah,
basketball.
yeah.
Right?
Was
Two
he the
different
first
things. Like one's their
celebrity?
impact culturally
Like
and
Yeah,
one's
exactly. But exactly one is culturally the best we've ever, like perhaps culturally Beckham transcended everything, but maybe as a football player, not necessarily.
did
Mm.
Maradona or even Pelé, because he played in America for a time, have that kind of effect?
No, I don't think anyone had
You
the
couldn't
effects of
compare it?
Beckham.
You don't think?
I personally
No.
don't think anyone had the effect. And he married a
probably the
superstar.
closest
Back then
anyone's
they
come is
didn't.
Messi
Yeah.
now.
He had the pop star wife as well. So
Yeah,
that
it was
Yeah.
that, right?
factor,
Because
yeah.
even Messi has married a girl that he knew from Rosario. Like it's like none of
Mm.
them have. Like maybe if Ronaldo had married Irina Shayk and then they did a documentary about her like modeling, then sure. But like,
Yeah.
Beckham's the only
Yeah.
one who had that.
There was that anecdote, wasn't there, about like going to the party at his house and there being like, Stevie Wonder playing the piano and Tom Cruise there, and you're like, yeah, that doesn't happen to anyone else, does it? That's not
Yeah.
that's not like
And
yeah.
they're all asking him to like hang out. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
Yeah.
he's like, chasing it. They're just all coming to him. He was Beckham. Like he was like, I used to know him mostly from because I loved the Spice Girls as a kid. It wasn't like I was watching
Yeah.
Manchester United in my spare time, So
But, oh my god,
It's
those
amazing.
pictures of their wedding as well. Incredible.
Right.
The purple
the
was
purple
incredible.
is just- I mean, he brought a lot of this shit on himself with
He
the
did
silly,
bring a lot on himself.
the
For
sarong
That's
and all
what
that kind of
made
For
him.
stuff.
sure.
But that's what made him. If he was just
Yeah.
wearing regular stuff, he wouldn't have been fun. I love that he was crazy like that.
Yeah.
What about as a
I-
footballer? Because I've noticed there's
Mhm.
been a lot of talk after this series. Was he that great as a footballer? My answer is yes, he
Mhm.
was fucking brilliant. I loved him as a footballer. What do you guys reckon?
For a while,
think-
I don't know.
I think I really struggle with the question because I think I'm conscious of what age I was when he was at his peak and how I watched football when he was at his peak, which is different to how I watch football now. Like I watch football now in a very different way to how I did when I was a teenager. When I was a teenager, I was an Arsenal fan. He was the enemy, and my perception at the time was always that there were other United players who I thought were better. I thought Roy Keane was more important. I thought Paul Scholes was more important. But I don't know if it's true. I don't know if that's like partly what I wanted to tell myself as well, because sometimes, I'm certain I fell into that feeling of, oh, he's more of a celebrity than a footballer. And again, my perspective on that would not have been based on watching 90 minutes of Manchester United every week. It would have been based on watching them on Match of the Day, watching them when they played Arsenal, and then reading what I read in the newspapers.
I think what made him so good, like I think he was very good, but I don't know if he's like, I wouldn't say he was top 3 of Manchester United, because I agree. Like, as in, what was so impressive about that 99 victory against Bayern was that final didn't have Roy Keane and Scholes, and they won.
Serie Chronicles is a Chronicles production.